Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Highway to Health Show. I'm your host, Dr. E, the Stem Cell Guy. And today I am joined by a good friend of mine called Dave Nelson. Dave's been in the health and wellness industry for several years. As a matter of fact, he and I met about 10 years ago while we were both working on cruise ships, and he was doing a fitness instructor there. He was a fitness instructor, and he was helping people overcome some of their health challenges while being on vacation. And ever since then, he has grown and he has developed this huge passion for helping people in the health and wellness industry. And he has built a business around it, being very, very successful. And he's going to share a lot more about that with us. I'm very excited to have him on. Dave, welcome to the show.
Always a pleasure to have a chat. All things health, especially.
Yeah. How are things going on over there in Australia?
Australia, it's middle of winter here, so we're freezing cold, but opposite to the to most of your listeners. But no, all things are well.
Good. I'm happy to hear that. Listen, I'm super excited to learn more about what you're currently doing. But for all of our listeners who don't really know you yet, why don't you share with us a little bit of your story? How did you get started in this in the health and wellness industry?
Yeah, I got started. I was always a big sports guy growing up, but super unhealthy. I was the guy playing sport 7 nights a week, but I was living on KFC, McDonald's, and everything in between. So I was actually had a lot of health issues growing up, which often our voids create our passion. And I kind of fell into the bodybuilding or fitness modeling, that type of industry at about 21. And I continued to sort of destroy my health doing it. And I actually was on covers of magazines. I was writing for different fitness magazines, but my health was still terrible. And through that journey, I kind of fell into holistic health and started asking the question, how do I maintain good health and a good physique and whatnot, doing it the healthy way and not having all these health challenges. I suffered chronic migraines, like multiple a week for many, many years, saw doctors for over a decade and no one ever found a solution. And it wasn't until I started learning about nutrition and wellness and doing it the healthy way that magically, after probably 10, 15 years of chronic migraines and a lot of other health issues, they all disappeared. And that's when I got really passionate about, getting healthy the holistic way and naturally and doing it the right way. And, fell into, the supplement industry and was a big part of that in the fitness industry when I met you, doing seminars and personal training and competitions and writing for fitness companies and everything in between, and just sort of, fell in love with the wellness space.
That's actually very interesting what you mentioned, because recently here on the podcast, a common theme has been exactly this. A lot of us, as we're growing up and we're in our teens and we're in early adulthood, we seem fit on the outside or healthy on the outside because maybe a lot of people aren't like morbidly obese, or we can still work
Yeah.
out, or in your case, you were like full on exercising 7 days a week. However, you were clearly unhealthy, and that seems to be quite common. And the way I equate it and what I tell people all the time is, when you're young, it's kind of like when you get that fresh new credit line, right? And you have your credit card and you don't owe anything, and then you start putting stuff on it and you can barely pay it, but you're still going until someday you can no longer put anything else on it, and you're stuck with interest and you're stuck with all these payments. So do you think that that's a little bit what your case was, at least on the health side of it?
Oh yeah, I think probably didn't get away with I didn't get away with it that well, because even though I was, doing magazine shoots and whatnot, had a six pack and whatnot, is I'd never been unhealthier. So I did not feel like I was getting away with it. I definitely felt like a little bit of a fraud.
That's interesting. Why is that?
I think because you're on these fitness magazines projecting health, but behind the scenes, you're suffering migraines and you're blacking out and you've got headaches and you're unwell. And I remember for these photo shoots, I remember one photo shoot was probably my best one, where I looked in the best shape and I had two massive boils on the middle of my forehead that they had to Photoshop out. And that was really the symbol of what was really going on inside.
That's actually quite interesting, because recently there's been a lot of backlash on many of these like health YouTubers. So these personalities online who've been advocating for like a raw food diet for so long, and a plant-based diet, and many of them have started shifting away from that when they realized that it just was not sustainable. And we've seen these terrible backlash of it, because they come out and they say, you know what, for years I felt awful. I felt like a hypocrite because I wasn't feeling as well as I was preaching or as I was making it look. So that is certainly not something that is just exclusive to the
Mm,
bodybuilding.
yeah. No, absolutely. I
Yeah.
see that a lot.
So share with us a little bit. You mentioned that after a while, and once you started recovering your health, you started looking into supplements. Now that's also kind of like a love-hate relationship among a lot of people when you hear health supplements, because
Yeah.
everyone thinks that, well, no, all you need to do is just to eat well, and that's it. But on the other side, we're seeing that most of our food, uh, most of our food really doesn't necessarily have all these nutrients anymore. So what made you go into that side?
Well, I probably went too far into supplements, which actually caused other health issues. So it was funny, after I probably got way too obsessed with biohacking. I was on 24 different tablets and pills because I wanted to maximize my health. I was intermittent fasting, and I'd have 17 different supplements before 10 a.m. And I was actually super sick, and I was having 9.5 alkalized water, ionized, all this magic water. And I was sick. I was sick all the time. And I remember my business partner going to me, because I was always sick at work. And he's like, dude, you've been sick for like 6 months straight, like with a sniffle or a runny nose. Like, what's going on here? And I sort of thought to myself, I'm like, yeah, this isn't working. I'm spending a fortune, and I'm back to always having a runny nose, or I'm got the flu or whatever it may be. And I was taking far too many supplements. And the theory that I've been told from a lot of experts is, when you're taking too much of a supplement, you're actually creating all these imbalances in your body, and your body's kind of all over the place. It doesn't know what's going on. It's trying to figure out this balance, and you're always sick. So anyway, I probably balanced out where I take minimal supplements now. Like, I take a super greens blend, which is all from plants, so it's not too artificial, and I only take one a day, not three. And I'll take a natural plant-based enzyme here and there, and a little bit of fiber, but really trying not to overdo supplements, and just use it, as it's meant to be, to supplement what was meant to be in the food, but maybe has deteriorated a little bit. And I think that's probably a similar thing with what you're saying with people that have gone vegan. They go too extreme and probably get sick, where the philosophy of eating more plants is probably amazing, but everyone takes everything too literally and too far. And I think that's probably causing, a lot of the problems.
Yeah, it's such a great thing that you bring that up, because when you start going into all these little biohacks, it, it's very, very easy to overdo them. I that started
Mm,
happening to me as well. When you start going into that and you start increasing your fat and you want to do this like bulletproof thing, right? And I did that for
yeah.
a while. And you start adding butter to your coffee and butter here and this and that, and you start looking for that shortcut. And as a matter of fact, I've shared this before, but that's the reason why I wanted to call the podcast "The Highway to Health" and not "The Shortcut to Health."
Mm,
There is a faster way to get there, or a speedier way to get there, but you still have to go the entire way. You can't
yep.
just shortcuts and expect those to work for the long term. And that's what a lot of people think. Suddenly they decided, happened to me on the stem cell side of things. We started getting calls from people who had a little bit more money than common sense, and they said, you know what, I just want to keep partying, I just want to keep abusing my body. I guess I'll just go down and get stem cells every 6 months, and that'll keep me up, right? And we used to say, well, that's not how it works. You need to change
Mm,
everything for
yep.
themselves to work. And same thing with supplements, same thing even with exercise. We're seeing all these different exercise techniques and the high intensity intervals and the blood flow, what you call those, the blood flow constraint bands,
Constrictors. Yeah. Yeah.
constrictors. And it's just that it's I don't necessarily want to put in the work, but I still want the results, and it simply doesn't work.
Mm, yep. It's like everything in life, isn't it?
Exactly. So it's really good that we have someone here who comes in and says, you know what, and you're still super young, and you come in and you say, you know what, I've realized this. It really doesn't work. And if it doesn't work for someone who's healthier than most of the people who are starting to look into health, then it is a good message to send to everyone. Like, listen, you have to put in the work. And I know it's not easy, but you do have to be more mindful about what you eat. You do have to be more careful with moving and exercising and all those different things. So yeah, it's really good that you bring it up. Now, speaking of bringing it up, you've been also educating and writing and speaking at different organizations. have you what has been your experience so far with this? Have you really found a calling there, helping people, influencing them, and improving their health?
Yeah, I think it's one of the big pieces of the pie of life, and I'm quite interested in mindset, health, business. So it's kind of just one of the biggest pieces of the pie that I like to talk about and learn about as well. Like it's always learning, always experimenting, and self analyzing, and often that's the best way to really understand it, is to go through it yourself, and you can become more effective at seeing it in others when you've also experienced it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the same thing here. That's why I've pivoted so hard from just being entirely a clinician to being able to build this platform and help spread the message and educate more people, because in reality, I think we can make a much stronger impact, as in my case, as a physician, or pretty much any health professional, as educators and helping people not need us in the first place, than it is to just show up to an office and be fixing people who have already developed these
Mm.
problems. So I think it is incredibly empowering and fulfilling to be able to do these things, and I'm sure you've been enjoying it as well for all these years. Now, let's switch gears a little bit. I know that you've been recently going into a slightly different area in terms of health and wellness, and you've started looking into something that is very, very common and very popular right now in our field. And I've been asked a lot of questions about it in my background, dealing with all these children with autism, all these different
Mm.
autoimmune disorders and inflammatory disorders. So I'm very interested to know what got you so interested in CBDs and the CBD industry in general.
Well, I think so I was obviously in the supplement industry for 8 years, and this has probably had more awareness, more hype, more studies, more outrageously good results than maybe any other supplement in the history of supplements potentially. So I think naturally I was a little bit skeptical, and didn't pay too much attention to it. And then when you start seeing that no one's really opposing it, and there's just everything just seems positive, positive, positive. And although I guess one thing that I think, everyone's using CBD to heal something, whether it's depression or body pain, or like you said, people using it for autism. But it kind of got me questioning, going, hey, if there's these different studies that are suggesting that it might help, lower the size of tumors even, and these types of things. So that really got me questioning, going, hey, well, if that's what it's doing to someone that's sick, imagine what it's doing to someone's body as a preventative, and all the other things. And then, probably the best thing, or my favorite thing, I guess, to really learn about at the moment, is the inflammation response on the body, and showing the power of CBD on inflammation. From what I've read and what I've experienced in myself, I think inflammation is kind of the root of all problems in the body, whether it's a headache or body soreness or it's a digestive issue. It all seems to have a link to inflammation. So that's what I've been studying recently. And that's when CBD popped up, and it was kind of like, wow, inflammation seems to cause all the problems. This seems to be amazing for inflammation. It's kind of a match made in heaven. And yeah, started learning about it, and yeah, and that's what's really got me passionate about CBD and the power of it.
Yeah, exactly. I've heard so many good things about it. I've used CBD for the last maybe for the last 6 to 8 weeks, semi
Yep.
regularly. Well, actually regularly, and it is one of those things. I have to say that some people will find it miraculous, especially people who come in already with a specific diagnosis or
Mm.
chronic disorder,
Yep.
or they have like children with autism. It's something that's very, very evident. But when you start
Yep.
using it more on a wellness, anti-aging
Hmm.
regimen, it's one of those things that you don't really feel any different at all. But you
Correct.
start
Yeah.
doing it, and then suddenly you run out of CBD oil, and you skip it for a day or two, and then you start noticing the differences.
Yep.
Has that been your experience? Because it definitely was with me. I even told Evelyn, my wife, at first when I started using it, because she was very curious about it, and she's like, so how are you feeling? And I said, I feel exactly the same. I don't see
Yep.
any difference. I'll just keep using it. And then suddenly I ran out of the bottle. It had like a 30-day dose, or something along those lines.
Mm.
And I said, okay, well, that was it. That's $100 down the drain,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? But what happened is that a couple of days later, I realized that I just wasn't functioning the same way. And for
Yeah.
me, one of the ways that I notice it a lot, there's two areas that I notice it a lot. One is in my joints. So I feel a lot of rigidity, especially after working
Mm.
out, mostly on my knuckles and things
Yep.
like that. Nothing serious, nothing bad, and it goes away after a little bit. But the other thing is mental clarity and focus. That is one area, because right now with what I'm doing, I do a lot of head down focused work that I have to
Mm.
think, I have to be writing, I have to be creating a slideshow, recording a video. And I do notice myself, I do find myself a lot less focused if I'm not taking it. So that
Yep.
for me that is 100% worth it, because I did the nootropics for a while and it just always felt like there was some side effect. There was something
Yep.
that wasn't just working for me. Have you noticed that to be the experience with you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, from what I'm learning each day is it does take time to slowly build up CBD. It's not like coffee where you have it and you're wired. In fact, if you take, I took, like you probably, anyone listening will will probably know some of my tendencies already, is when I do something, I do it too hard. So I've come in and when I started it, I've taken like quadruple dose because I heard, hey, it's a bit slow to build up. So I'm like, well, I need to figure out if this works ASAP. So when I started taking it, took 4 times, the recommended amount, and I had some negative effects. And Harvard actually did an article that says there are some negative effects if you go too hard. So I did get a bit nauseous and I did get a bit irritable, and I never felt that before. But it was very clear why when reading the Harvard article. But yeah, from there on, it's been amazing. And yeah, probably mental clarity from first thing in the morning is just, let the remove of that cloudy feeling of waking up is probably the best thing I've noticed. And yeah, definitely the joints and whatnot. But I do think, yeah, from everything I've read, it does take, up to 14, 21 days to really compound and work in the body. So I do think, yeah, I think that would be my advice to people starting and thinking, hey, I don't feel too much, but it's like, hey, it's not, we're just used to stuff like coffee or pre-workouts or something that goes instant, 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 but there's a crash.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because when you look at it from a physiological perspective, we actually have in our bodies, we have an endocannabinoid system
Mm.
that recognizes these different cannabinoid and starts acting and influencing our cells. And I've had some other people here in the podcast that have explained the science a lot deeper. I've had people who have used it for cancer. I remember
Mm.
Gary Heyer on one of our first episodes, I believe, if my memory serves me well, it was episode 12, where he shared how he's been using CBD ever since he was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer, and has helped him tremendously go through chemotherapy
Mm.
and even get to a point of reversing it. And he doesn't know if it's entirely because of the CBDs or what, but he does realize that obviously it has helped him tremendously. So that's why he keeps using it. And we've had some other people talk about how our body reacts to this, contrary to what you just mentioned, that
Mm.
caffeine or any of these external stimulants that will just give us a jolt. The endocannabinoid system has to start building up to it and has to start having that physiological effect. But the same is true on the other side. Once you start building that up, you can also decrease the dosage and you will still be getting the benefits.
Yeah, yeah. And then I guess one of the questions I wanted to ask you is kind of what I touched on earlier is I really feel like inflammation is kind of like the secret to good health in a lot of ways, or at least the secret to why someone has so many problems. What's your experience and research been on in inflammation in the body, and how devastating that is, and what the referral effects are of that chronic inflammation in the body?
Well, from my knowledge and from talking to other experts, like I said before, it does help control inflammation. As a matter of fact, that
Mm.
is one of the most important reasons why it actually helps children with autism. The problem that we have in autism and the neurological manifestations of it, people don't really understand. For instance, that autism isn't a neurological disease. It's more a GI and an immune system disease that manifests
Mm.
neurologically. Because what's
Yep.
happening is that at the GI level, you are creating this inflammation, right? And those cells, those affected tissues are releasing a host of pro-inflammatory cytokines. And it is these cytokines that do cross the blood-brain barrier and start
Yep.
creating inflammation, chronic inflammation in the brain. And it's actually very similar to what you see in elderly patients with dementia. When they
Yeah,
did
wow.
studies, they started finding the same inflammatory markers in the cerebrospinal fluid in children with autism as with elderly patients with dementia. We know that dementia is a chronic inflammation disease. So when you can start controlling and decreasing the expression of these pro-inflammatory cytokines, it helps tremendously in so many ways, because inflammation isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it is a bad thing when it is chronic, and it's low
Correct. Yeah.
grade chronic. That's why we can tolerate it well, and it just
Mm.
builds up, and we start getting all these little aches and pains, and we associate them to aging. Well, I'm getting older. Well, it's
Yeah.
normal. Well, I shouldn't have done that. But then we get used to that one, and then we add another one, and then we add another one, and then we add another one. And before we know it, we're almost crippled, right? So when we can find something that helps us control inflammation in that manner, it is very, very powerful.
Yeah, and I feel like modern society has us pouring more inflammation into our body than ever, which is kind of causing us to tip over the edge, from everything from stress to too much coffee to sugar to additives to chemicals to alcohol to drugs, whatever else everyone's doing. It's just more fire on fire on fire of this inflammation. And that's why I like intermittent fasting so much, because it kind of gives the body, hey, if you're not eating, your body doesn't have to be digesting food, and it can help work on the on the inflammation. But hey, I've gone 12 hours of not pouring my body with more inflammation as well.
Exactly, exactly. It's actually great. It's actually something great that you just brought up in terms of intermittent fasting. I know that you do quite a bit of it as well, and people don't realize the power of fasting. If we go back in time, fasting was a therapeutic measure. It was
Yeah.
the way that even Hippocrates used to talk about it. And, if somebody was ill, it's like, okay, first thing you need to do, you need to stop eating, because what's happening, and we don't necessarily understand this, digestion is a process. It's an energy requiring process. So it starts getting resources from everywhere else in the body in order for
Hmm.
us to digest and to break down these different nutrients. Because in reality, we aren't necessarily eating carbohydrates and proteins and all these things. We're eating larger pieces of food, and we need to break it down. And even proteins, we break them down into amino acids, and carbohydrates we break down into different sugars, and then fats we break down into fatty acids. And it is those smaller molecules that we can absorb. And once we absorb them, we need to bring them into our cells and do whatever we need. So a lot of the times what happens when we fast is that we give our gut time to heal. It cannot heal if it's constantly working. It's
Hmm.
just like us. If we don't ever take a vacation, then we never really fill back up. We don't recover. So it needs that time to really recover, to heal, to do all these different things, right? And then also it serves our cells, because it starts
Mm.
triggering something called autophagy. And autophagy basically means that the cells are consuming themselves. And it is kind of like your fridge. If you haven't gone shopping for a while and you see kind of like the older things, and you throw together a stew or something along those lines to use them up, that's what our body kind of like does with everything that is inside the cell. It kind of like starts scavenging for different parts and recycling them and reusing them, instead of them just piling up there and making it inefficient. So autophagy is really, really interesting, really good for immune function and also for inflammation. So when you combine those two, you should have a lot more beneficial effects. Is this something that you're currently doing?
Yes, that's kind of the way we're sort of putting together the best way to take CBD. It's kind of like, if you're going to take CBD, let's let the body rest. Let's do the intermittent fasting, and let's let this CBD go to work and work its magic, rather than if we're, the average person might be, from 6 o'clock in the morning, when they're having sugar with coffee and cornflakes or whatever else they're having. They're not giving their body time to really transform. And I think the combination of those two, you're just working one in hand, and they both, in a way, in theory, enhance each other.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I think that the benefits could be profound. One thing I really like about the CBD is that it has that very interesting balancing effect. Like, you take it early in the morning, and it helps you kind of like wake up and
Yeah.
and be more alert, be more active. But if you take it in the evening, the exact same CBD, you take it in the evening, it helps you kind of like wind down and go to bed, and sleep better. So it's really good to use it. And when you use it in conjunction with intermittent fasting, and intermittent fasting, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to eat for like a day and a half or 2 days or 3 days. It just means that you decrease the window of time within which you're consuming food. And most
What do you do? What do you do?
I do a kind of like a, it's not a very strict, but really I do have a time constrained window. I'm actually trying to move it closer to the morning, because right now what
Yep.
happens here is that life is so late around here, and I have no problem
Yeah.
skipping breakfast. Skipping breakfast is easy for me. So I normally have lunch, but then dinner is usually around 8 or 9 p.m. So what we're trying to do is to eat breakfast, eat lunch, and then stop until the next day. That's kind of like what we're aiming for, and have about a 6 hour eating window. I'm not very strict about that, about a
Yep.
6 hour eating window, and about, 18 of
Yep.
fasting. But I think a lot of people can start just with 12 and 12, and it's
Yep.
entirely, it's fine. And then you start adding a little bit, and you go,
Mm.
10 and 14, something along those lines.
Yeah, yeah. And then one thing I did last year, which I think supercharged my health, was I did a 4-day water fast with a few teas and whatnot. And the instant effects and the benefits of that have been it's probably been the most impactful thing I've done in my health, in my life to date, I would say, in a lot of ways. So I haven't done it yet because I just haven't got there. My lifestyle hasn't permitted, but I would love to see the effects of a 3 to 4 day water fast with CBD. And that would, I imagine that would be when you're letting this amazing herb really do its magic in the body to a whole nother level. So I'm looking forward to doing that. I'll probably do that next couple of weeks, I would say.
Yeah, that one's probably a very interesting experiment. I've been you know toying with the idea of extended periods of fasting. I've done 72 hours
Yep.
at a time, but mostly it's a modified. It's more like a fast mimicking diet where I was
Yep.
having a lot of fats, so like bulletproof coffee or something
Yep.
along those lines. No proteins, no carbs.
Mm.
But still, ever since I read Dr. Fung's Guide to Fasting, the Complete Guide to
Yep.
Fasting, it really opens up that that door into, this might be something that is very good. And as a matter of fact, a lot of researchers have been talking about, the keto longevities to limit the amount of calories that we're consuming, and limit
Yeah.
the window of time within which we're consuming them. We didn't really evolve to be eating all day. If you that's
No.
happening for the last couple thousand years. In reality, men have always been humans have been scavenging. So really, our bodies have evolved not to have food throughout the day, even for days at a time that we really didn't have food. So in reality, that helps us function a lot better. So it'll be very very interesting to see the results of that. Make sure to keep us posted.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And and I think I tested out CBD because I don't drink late anymore. And now I'm 31 now, so I'm a little bit better behaved. But I managed to have a bit later one this weekend, quite late, and had the CBD in the morning, and the difference was amazing. Not that I think that's the best use of your CBD, but to see the drastic effect of a difference as to opposed to a hangover without one, it was amazing to see the product work, I guess, to
Yeah,
that
how it
degree.
helps how it helps you recover at a cellular level. Because in the end, that's a little bit of the reversing some of that damage that staying out late and drinking more than you
Mm,
should have, and things like that
yeah,
are probably causing, because people don't realize how important sleep is. So being able to leverage that, and to protect your sleeping time, and be able to recover and function is so important. So before we wrap this up, why don't you really tell us about what is this challenge that you've been talking about, this intermittent fasting and CBD challenge?
yeah. So really, just introducing people to intermittent fasting and CBD without too drastic a change in their life. So basically, what it is you're skipping breakfast as far as a solid meal, and you'll have a bit of CBD in the morning. So the body's been fasting all night because you'll finish eating dinner at 6 o'clock. Ideally, your body's fasted all night. It's clean. It's recharged. It's ready to continue healing. And instead of pouring more food down and starting the healing process again, you're really letting the body heal on a deeper level, not just process the food, and having the CBD in the morning, and then letting the body just work its magic in synergy together till lunchtime. And then for lunch and dinner and, an afternoon snack, you still eat as per normal. Obviously, if you're going to do a 30-day sort of run, why not, enhance the benefits and try and make as many of those meals plant rich as possible. Is kind of the goal, and limit, don't eat excess red meat or excess sugar or alcohol, and try and do 30 days. And, what the benefits in that 30 days will be is enormous. Like I've had people previously lose, over 100 pounds over just a few months doing this style of intermittent fasting. And you can still have a tea or a supplement or a greens or a black coffee or something to get you through. But yeah, that's sort of the way of introducing it to people. And you don't have to intermittent fast to use CBD. It's just kind of let's give the body a massive gift and let it heal and really look after it for 30 days and see what the difference is. And then after that, you can go back to breakfast, lunch, and tea, and maybe you'll only intermittent fast, for a month on here and there, or every other week, and if you really see the benefits, then I do encourage people to maybe try a full day or 2 days of water fasting and let the body fully heal with CBD, and maybe take the healing and the body recovery process to another level. So that's kind of the basics of the concept.
And who do you think would be kind of like the ideal candidate to try this? Who do you envision? I mean, obviously everyone and anyone can benefit from this, but who do you envision will have the most profound changes and results in the first couple of days or during
Well,
those 30 days?
yeah, it's a funny one because I think maybe, people as they're starting to feel aging, hormones change and whatnot after sort of 35 when, we don't get away what we used to. I think they'll have the most drastic results. However, they might have an initial detox reaction if they're removing a lot of, so they might have a little bit more pain before they get the better result. Where, a lot of guys might, maybe in their mid 20s, you're already on the health kick or whatnot, that they might ease into the program a little easier, but their results might not be as profound. But in saying that, it's crazy, this CBD product, because I was at breakfast with my girlfriend's grandpa recently, and I think he's 90 or 92, and him and all his buddies are talking about CBD. I've never, getting someone over 50 to take a vitamin 5 years ago was a mission, let alone having someone in their 90s all talking about this CBD and the effects and the pain relief and that. And I think and also, well, I guess I'm ignoring the obvious one. They're saying, most people with anxiety, depression, tension, headaches, they're anxious, are going to have the best results with CBD, of course. Which is probably the obvious one.
Yeah, exactly. And I have to agree with you. When you were talking about the challenge to me earlier, I thought that probably the ideal person to do this is kind of like someone in their late 30s, 40s, even early 50s, who's kind of like deciding that they want to improve their health and embark on a better health journey. They've realized that, they cannot keep partying or they cannot keep staying up late, and, they're being bogged down by all these aches and pains, and they want to do something good for their bodies. And what happens is that most of the time, people around this age, they decide, okay, I got to start eating better. I got to start exercising more. And it's not as straightforward as it once was, or at least that's what the industry makes it look like, because you need to figure out what kind of exercise you need to figure out what you need to do. In reality, it's a lot more common sense. Just like you said, just eat less, have more plants, limit your inflammation, decrease your eating windows, and move more. Really, that's the answer. Like, well, what kind of exercise should I do? What kind of exercise do you enjoy? And it's as simple as that. But what we're seeing is that for a lot of these people, it's really, really hard to stick to this because it takes a while to start seeing results. That's why I think that having a challenge, kind of like what you're putting out there, is such a great thing, because there is that, and I'm guessing that there's also this kind of like intrinsic motivation, this kind of like a team thing, and this kind of like ongoing support. So I mean, that for me would be very, very valuable.
Yeah, and I think as well as that is you want to get a bit of education in there, because I think if you understand why something's working in the body, you're more likely to stick it out for the full 30 days and go, hey, if I do this, my inflammation is going to get a rest. My digestive system's going to get a rest. It's anti-aging. It's going to let my body recharge. Now there's a bigger why and there's a bigger purpose behind doing it, rather than, oh, do this challenge, you might lose some weight. And, the why is not big enough. The education's not there. So as I think you said, people in that, heading into their late 30s that are maybe starting to feel tired, stressed, run down, and just feel like their body needs some love, I think they're the ideal person.
So, and it is free for people to join this challenge. I mean, obviously they have to buy their CBD and they have to do
Yep.
all those things, but to join the challenge, you get the support, get some of that education. That's all going to be free, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect, perfect. Well, I mean, for everyone listening, I'm very happy to let you know that that Dave has given you guys a special link to join the challenge and to be able to get the exact kind of CBDs that he's using and that he recommends, and the kind of intermittent fasting and some of the supplements and some of the additional educational materials. And you can find all of that information. You just need to go to dre.show/CBD, and you just sign up there, like we were just sharing. It's completely free. The most important aspect of it is that community aspect, that support, seeing other people on a similar journey, sharing your questions, your experience, asking the experts or people who have a little bit more experience than you, and learning from one another. So once again, that's dre.show/CBD. You can also find that link in this episode's description, and you just tap on that and you sign up, and you join us for the challenge. I will personally be joining you guys as well for the challenge. So, Dave, who else do you think should listen to this? Like, who else should be getting on the CBD train? I know there's still some limitations as to where in the world people can get CBD. It is my understanding that it is not illegal in a lot of places, but it is not easy to commercialize or to get their hands on. Is this what the case is over there in Australia?
Yeah, I think like a lot of countries, they don't want to give the green light, and there's a lot of, political and paperwork and all that involved, and legislation, because they don't want to let the floodgates open and let, before they know it, I think everyone's fear is you open it up and it opens up full marijuana growing and everyone becomes a stoner, which I don't think that's happened in the countries necessarily. It has been legalized in, but you can understand why there is, a slow process and a bit of due diligence to do to, open it up, in a safe and, timely manner.
Yeah, that's very important as well, because as we've been seeing, especially in the U.S., they started just allowing this, and we're seeing some very interesting, some very progressive companies that are building it the right way. But there's also the scammers, as with everyone, and this is something that, unless you're very knowledgeable or you can find someone that's reputable and a company that's reputable. That's why I think it's so important to for instance, join a community where you can get recommendations and say, you know what, here in this country, these are the ones that we can vouch for, and that we know have good quality, good standards. And elsewhere, these are the things that you need to be looking out for in a CBD. Here in Europe right now, I see that it has been allowed, and you see a lot of places that are selling and offering CBDs. But same thing, you need to know what to look for in order to get the good quality ones, to make sure the differences between CBDs and THCs, and the concentrations and all those things that we've discussed here in other episodes. But I think that having access to that information as part of this challenge that you're offering us is going to be very, very interesting, and be able to help a lot of people, because that's the great thing. They don't necessarily need to be in one specific area. It's something that they can just follow and participate anywhere in the world, right?
Absolutely. And as you said, CBD, unfortunately, the dark side is it's probably going to be the biggest snake oil product of all time, because it's mixed with a product that's easy to dilute. So they know that the average person hears about it, is in pain, and will pay top dollar. And, they're not going to lab test themselves. And most people don't know what a COA test is to look it up. And that's why, people will take advantage of people's lack of understanding, and they'll probably get away with it for the next few years. And, yeah, unfortunately, that's the way it is. So yeah, that's as you said, the benefit of a strong community and that education behind it as well is key.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so there you have it, everyone. This is a great opportunity for you to improve your health, for you to kind of like take that turn into a better health and start improving in an easy to do way, in a science backed way. Just limiting your eating window, having the support, adding some CBD to control inflammation, and it's just a great anti-aging regime. And I'm very excited for that. Dave, do you have any parting words?
No, I think just give it a shot and go all out, get educated, and yeah, look after the body because you know what, I'm 31, so I'm trying to avoid the aging process, and as I do, I'll be delving into more. I guess I'll probably be more strict on all this stuff myself. So
Good. And before we wrap this up, actually, besides the link that I just gave for the challenge, where people will be able to interact with you, where else can they find out about you? Where else can they learn about what you do and your background and all these things? Are you active on social media? Where can they find you?
yeah, Facebook's probably the best one. I think Instagram's a bit too much photos and not enough education and values. So yeah, Facebook's still my favorite platform.
You're getting old, man.
I know.
Perfect. Well, it's been a pleasure having you. Everyone else, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Remember, for the complete show notes, the transcript, the links, the resources that we've spoken about, you just need to go to dre.show/CBD. And there you will be able to sign up for the challenge, but you will also get the rest of the resources for this episode, including the transcript, like I said, and including some additional links and including everything else that you need to know. I'll link to the other episodes that I referenced here. And I really look forward to your questions. I look forward to interacting with you and with Dave in our upcoming challenge. And without further ado, that's pretty much it for this special episode of the Highway to Health Show. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. All right.